Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video is episode 2 of the new E.T.N. podcast. Well, it's not new, but it's just kind of a revamp, you know what I mean? But anyway, as I mentioned in my last episode, this one we're going to talk about an early leak for the next Godzilla x Kong movie. Now look, before we get into this, we have seen so many leaks over the years. Most of them never really come to fruition. The most recent one I remember that did come to fruition was for Godzilla vs. Kong. I remember it was probably a week or two before the movie, and somebody had made a post. They got an early screening, and they described the second fight between Godzilla and Kong in China. And I remember I was reading it on the stream, and we all kind of laughed because he got to the part where he was describing when Godzilla went on all fours and was clawing at Kong. And it's amazing because I remember laughing because that sounded ridiculous. Obviously in practice it was pretty cool. We were pretty unsure whether or not to believe it, but as we saw the movie, obviously it did come to fruition. The guy did describe other elements of the movie, so yeah, that was a legit leak, albeit it was 2 weeks before the movie. And at that point, some people are getting to watch it before others. Leaks that come out this early are usually not true. So, but before I get into it, obviously a spoiler warning just in case. If you don't want to take the chance that this is true and spoil it for yourself 3 years in advance or 2 years in advance, then you might want to click away from the video. Otherwise, I'm going to read exactly what this person's saying. Now, this is on the TohoKingdom on the forum. Name of this thread is regarding the Godzilla x Kong 3 Monsterverse 6 news discussion and speculation thread. This was posted 2 days ago, or 3 days ago. Yeah, January 30th, so Friday. And this is by someone named the Kaijucifer. It's a pretty funny name. So I want to thank also viewer James Sidoti shared this with me earlier in the weekend, or last Friday, I should say. So I'm gonna read it. So if you, like I said, if you don't want to know anything about it in case it becomes true, now's the time to step away. So here we go. All right. So he says, I'm gonna read it verbatim. Okay, guys, brace yourselves for this. I received early information from a credible source with a consistent history. I will copy and paste here what I've been provided. Regardless of credibility, take with a grain of salt as usual. I'm liking what I hear, though. And of course, as I said, chances are likely that this is not true. Take it with a grain of salt, but here we go. So the movie seems action heavy. This is basically what the source told this guy. The movie seems action heavy, but a somber tone throughout, with serious implications involving the world's leaders appointing a new government agency to dismantle Monarch and take over the Hollow Earth operations, with the ultimate goal of collapsing it and effectively sealing the monsters away once and for all after destructive events of Godzilla x Kong. And the revelation of undocumented portals in the Hollow Earth. The antagonist this go around is actually an enraged Godzilla and the government agency responsible for upsetting the balance of nature. Shimo returns for a cameo but is subdued by the military in the Hollow Earth through a new anti-Titan weapon and the use of mechanized, and he puts this in quotes, zombie titans. We'll get into that at the end. Including skull crawlers. This angers the great apes in the Hollow Earth, who see the humans as tyrants, no different than Scar King. Kong is especially angered by the use of reanimated skull crawlers. Cameos of multiple titans battling the military before ultimately being destroyed and or subdued. Zuko returns and serves to break up the darker tone with comedic relief moments lightly sprinkled throughout. Kong's arc shares similarities with Godzilla's, but where they diverge is Kong struggles with his choice to continue coexisting with humanity, where Godzilla is seemingly at his wits' ends and ready for war. Kong has an epic scene battling the military in a major city. Godzilla is surprise attacked by the military while sleeping in the Roman Colosseum and battles through the military and their zombie titans. Godzilla has settled into his new form. It's stated his dorsal plates have straightened out and hardened, and his bulk has returned. Mothra returns and even has a brief battle with Godzilla and Kong as she chooses not to forsake humanity. It is through hers and Monarch's and Jaya's intervention that they convince Kong and later Godzilla that humanity is still worth fighting for. The ending seems hopeful that humanity will work towards cleaning up the Earth so they can coexist with it and the Titans like in ancient times once more. I received little other tidbits of info here and there, but these were presented the most clearly. All right. Now, out the gate. If this is all just jack shit, a lie, one thing I will say, the guy tells a pretty good story. It would be a good premise for the movie. Now, he puts zombies in quotations. When James at first told me about this, I was like, zombies? I was like, oh God. But it sounds like the type, because the thing about zombies is zombies are brain dead. They just want to eat flesh, and that's not what these Titans are doing. They're basically being reanimated as weapons. So some of them are being rebuilt with mechanized parts. It's not clear what Titans are being used. The only one they do state that they're using are skull crawlers, but they do mention that there are other Titans that are within their ranks. So it could be like the skull crawlers, or like, you know, the Zergs, the little Zerglings, and then they have other larger Titans to deal with more prominent Titans like Kong and Godzilla. Mothra returns and has a brief battle with Godzilla and Kong. So it looks like Mothra comes back and fights both Godzilla and Kong. I'm assuming this is separate, not at the same time, because they would wreck her. So she seems to be the voice of reason to kind of bring them back from completely destroying humanity. Again, sounds like something Mothra would do. Now, one thing that's interesting that they don't mention here is they say that this go around Godzilla is the antagonist, which would suggest that he's the villain for the majority of the movie. But they don't mention a second antagonist, which I would think, I mean, I guess you could say it's the military. So I'm sure there's another representation of an antagonist to take over this movie once Godzilla gets back to wanting to protect humans. So it's not clear here whether the military is that antagonist, if there is another monster that they have under their control that plays as a primary antagonist, or if it's just a weapon that they're building that can wipe out Titans. Look, if you choose to believe this, it's not a bad concept. It's not a bad premise for a movie. There's obviously not enough context here to get an idea of how it would ebb and flow, but I've heard much worse leaks than this, but be they real or fake. So, do I think it's real? No, I think it's too early. But I think it's well written. I think the tidbits are good ideas that could probably go in the movie. If it is real, I'd be shocked. I mean, we're 2 years removed from this movie. They're starting to cast now. Even if they have the script written and complete, the script is going to change 100 times before they start actually filming. And I know this, I'm more confident to say that now because recently I was on set of a movie that I had a very small part in. It's not a mainstream, well, I shouldn't say I can't say much because I can't. What I will say is it started off as a fan film, and it's definitely not a fan film anymore. It's a lot bigger than that, and just seeing how the writer and director of that film, I mean, within a couple of days, he sent me several scripts because my line had changed from a small sentence to a whole paragraph, and then I changed positions within the order of who says what line. And that was just that tidbit. I literally got like 4 different copies within a matter of 3 days. So, that's the interesting thing about scripts, is that they're always going to change. So I think leaks tend to be more believable or have a chance to be true after a movie's filmed. Because at that point it's set in stone. Beforehand, it's less likely because of the fact that scripts go through so many changes. Even if you were able to see one, something's going to change within 2 days of you reporting that leak. So, but again, that's not to say that there's not an outside shot that is true. I'm just going to choose to say that this is probably not. And it's also too vague in certain areas. Like the fact that they don't really get into, because I mean, if you're going to have Godzilla and Kong in a movie again, and Godzilla, Kong, and Mothra are going to kind of come to a conclusion again, you got to have another big villain to fight them. And there's no hint of that here. You can't convince me that the military is going to have any chance to present a challenge to those 3 monsters at the same time. It's just not going to happen. So it should be interesting. Look, leaks are always fun. You know, you read so many different ones. I remember one I read years ago that said that Jonah Allen this was before Godzilla vs. Kong. This is right as Godzilla vs. Kong was being worked on. And I read a script that he became like a blob of, like he became like a monster himself because of the Ghidorah DNA. And he essentially, everywhere he went, he would consume or drag like filth. Like eventually he like became a mixture of the Smog Monster and Destroyer. It was the fucking weirdest shit I ever read. So they're fun in that regard. You can look at some and laugh, and it's obviously they're fake. You can look at one like this and say, wow, this could be real, but is it real at this point? At this point in the game, probably not. And even if it was, chances are this is going to change within the next 2 years. I guarantee it. But it's still fun, right? Still fun to look at. It's still fun to read. It's really, right now it's hard to tell what kind of Godzilla x Kong sequel we're going to get this time. I think the idea of them fighting each other is probably over and done with. You have to make a big threat. This is why I have a problem with the military, at least here, coming off as the big threat. I don't buy that. That's not to say that the military wouldn't get involved. In fact, I think if you're looking at all these movies, you got to say to yourself, I'm surprised they haven't gotten involved yet. So the military getting involved, I can certainly see that as a possibility for the movie. But I still think these monsters are much too powerful for the military to have any chance to take them out on their own. Now, in terms of controlling Titans or reanimating them, there's a lot of story elements there that could lean to that. For example, there's still the Ghidorah head, right? There's still, if they ever decide to go by the book, there is a second Ghidorah head. But the first one from Godzilla versus Kong, I don't think is fully destroyed. Or they could have figured out a way to use his DNA to rehabilitate certain monsters that were either dead, regenerate their cells, and that's what gives them this zombie-like state in terms of being dead and coming back. That's essentially what they mean here when they say zombie. Using mechanical parts to replace the limbs that might have been broken or torn off in battle. So, when you look at the tech power creep in these movies, yeah, there's no surprise that the military would have some sort of capability. I mean, look at what they had for Kong, right? They had the glove. They were going to have a whole battle suit for Kong. So the idea that they can reanimate monsters or give them mechanical parts to replace broken limbs or missing limbs at this point in the Monsterverse is more than feasible. So that's definitely believable. Trying to collapse the Hollow Earth, I think that's not enough context, but if I had to guess what they mean by that, it's probably the second layer. So if you try to just collapse the first layer where most of the portals are, you're essentially just collapsing the surface on the Earth on top of the hollow Earth, which would kill people. I'm guessing they mean the other layer where Kong is, where he found Scar King and all the great apes. That's probably the area they want to collapse. Pardon me. But look, it's a fun read. If it's not true, which I think it's not true at all. The person who wrote it's still very good. Still very good little storyteller there, and definitely kept it. He didn't go crazy. You know what I mean? Like, you see, like I say, you read some leaks and they go crazy, and then Ghidorah and Gigan fly in from space and they start, shit like that. Where this is more along the lines of believable within the context of the story that the Monsterverse has been telling us the last 10 years. So anyway, I mean, look, I know this is a short one. I just kind of wanted to focus on talking about the leak. If you want to read it yourself, like I said, it is on TohoKingdom. The name of the thread is the Godzilla X Kong 3 Monsterverse 6 news discussion speculation thread. It's probably a couple of pages in by now. But yeah, it's interesting stuff. It's only started. We're gonna get many more leaks between now and the day this movie comes out, and they'll all be fun to read. We'll debate back and forth whether or not they're true. Again, every time we read these things, we always hear credible source. We never know who the source is. I get it. But if it's true, you don't want that person to lose their job. Well, if what they're doing could lose them their job, they probably shouldn't do it. But, everybody wants to be the first to everybody wants to get their clout. I get it. If you're the first to break the news, then yeah. But anyway, interesting stuff. We'll see. Let's try to remember this 2 years from now and see if it ever comes true. But I'm doubting that. Anyway, what are your thoughts on the leak below? What do you think? Do you think it sounds pretty good? I think if it was real, I would say this sounds like a good start for a premise. I would hope for more antagonist, a big bad for them to fight. But if this was like the core start, if this is where their jumping off point was from, I would say it's a good one. I would say it's definitely a good one. So to the person who wrote this, if you're telling the truth, good on you. And if you're not, hey, you should consider writing stories, man. Anyway, that's it for this video. We'll catch you guys on the next episode of this. This one was a mini cast. Only went, still meant almost 20 minutes. But I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Until then, this is Rob signing off for ETN, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.